I see the time has arrived. It is 7:30, so I would like to call the meeting to order and start as we traditionally do with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for attending this evening. There are copies of the agenda available on the recorder's desk. I would like to start with an approval of the agenda. I do believe the city manager has an amendment.
Yes, we need to set a date in December for the interviews for the boards and commissions. I've done some informal polling prior to the meeting, and I know December 1st and December 8th won't work. So I'd like to add that to the agenda number, let's say, after number 8. Add setting up a special meeting for the interviews.
Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the minutes of the regular commission meeting of October 20th and November 9th.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the two previous meetings.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Communications, I do not believe we have any. County Commissioner Helene.
Good evening, everybody, and congratulations to our newly elected commissioners and mayor. I'm Helene Zach, Oakland County Commissioner. I'm here to give you a monthly report. First of all, on my agenda, I have something about cybersecurity, particularly for seniors. We have been encouraged by our Oakland County Technology Department to be cautious about anything that you open up on the computer and never ever give anything financial. And I got an alert today that I passed on to Amy, our city manager, and she's going to publish it from the Area Agency on Aging 1B. Someone is making phone calls and saying, push 1 and you can have a free electronic alert. The area agency, so do not do it. The area agency did not send out this voicemail, and don't do it. So this is another example of holiday cybersecurity issues. So I just want to caution everybody, it is an issue. I know that there's concerns about having a dog park in Huntington Woods, and I do remember when we studied the issue, and we really don't have in our park space the adequate amount of space to do that. So I did go looking at the county and say, what's going on there, and ask the question. So the county has 2 dog parks, one in Red Oaks, one in like Orion. And the Red Oaks, they are talking about moving the Red Oaks Park closer to us, working with the city of Royal Oak. And the city of Royal Oak has a dog park around 14 and Campbell. It's still not right around the block, but it's closer. That I believe in the county's working on taking over that dog park. And they would like to use the existing county dog park space for more parking at the wave pool in that area. So this is in process. I will keep you posted. It's a little bit closer to Huntington Woods, and frankly, the county does a great job with the dog park. So I just wanted to let you know about that. And I know that there's been concerns. One of the things that I do as county commissioner is I vote to put ballot language before the voters. For example, I've done that for the Detroit Zoo millage, for the Detroit Institute of Arts, and so forth. And part of that legislation that people voted on, we created an arts authority and a zoo authority. And there have been concerns expressed about the Detroit Institute of Arts Authority. And I did go to their board meeting. I'm invited now to come as county commissioner, so I went to their board meeting. And one of the things that we did last June in response to the pay raises that they gave the former director and some others is that we amended our Arts Authority contract, saying that anytime they want to raise their leaders, it has to go through the Arts Authority for a vote, and we need to be publicly informed, just like we do Open Meetings Act. So for the Detroit Institute of Arts, it's a cultural change for them to be working with the public. They haven't done this before, so they're learning how to do it better. And they're starting to post things on their website, communicate with us more effectively. One of the things that I did learn is that in 2013, which is the first year of the Arts Millage in 2014, they have demonstrated that there's an $8 million investment back to the community. And this has increased entry, we have free entry into the Art Institute. One of the things that we ask them to do is they provide free bus transportation to school groups, to senior groups. They have senior days. They're taking art into the community. And the new director really feels strongly about community partnership and working with the different communities. So they've invested in those 2 years $8 million back into the communities, and that will continue to grow every year. And so we are getting a return on our investment, besides keeping this cultural jewel going. And the intent of the millage was to allow the DIA 10 years to build an endowment so that they're sustainable long range. Unfortunately, the grand bargain set them behind with the Detroit bankruptcy, but that is the goal of this. So, any questions for me? Thank you.
Is the floor open, Mr. Mayor?
Not at this time. It
She
will be.
raised the issue.
It will be in just a moment. Thank you, Aline, for your comments. Now is the time for public participation. Anyone who has a question, please come forward to the mic. State your name and address.
Good evening, David Sloan, 8050 Lincoln, Huntington Woods. We used to have a lectern here for residents to come and use, and perhaps a city or a city manager could look into that. I think that would be.
It's on order.
It's been ordered.
Thank you very much. Many residents have indicated an interest in city government and want to know more about the committee business. There's some who want to know how the decisions are made. The problem is they may not have time to sit through the meetings. They may have young children, or they may be seniors who are unable to drive at night. So in keeping with the spirit of transparency and openness of the government to all the residents, I propose that the City Commission adopt the following resolution. One, that all meetings of the Planning Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, and Historic District Commission be videotaped, broadcasted, and streamed to the residents of the Huntington Woods. Two, that all proposed minutes of all committees, in keeping with the Open Meetings Act, be posted on the Huntington Woods website within 8 business days of that meeting. And 3, that all approved minutes of all committees in conformance with Open Meetings Act be posted on the Huntington Woods website within 5 business days of the meeting at which the minutes are approved. We as residents we want to be involved in the city, and we ask that our commissioners consider these changes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Ken Zeno, 8634 Huntington. As to the Democratic partisan who talked about how wonderful us sending tax dollars without having a say. We have no say. We are not sitting on either the zoo or the DIA, and we're sending tax dollars to them. I urge you to consider pushing forth something so we actually have an appointee on that say. Right? Okay. Number 2, Mr. Olsman. We have written 2 checks to an attorney that apparently has a business relationship with you. Can you explain that business relationship?
Yeah, I have no business relationship. If you're referring to Mr. Mark Gonzato,
Yes.
Mr. Mark Gonzato is one of the premier appellate attorneys in the state of Michigan, Mr. Zeno. Mr. Gonzato's professional corporation pays rent to an LLC that my building, that I am the president of, that I own the LLC that my law firm pays rent to. He's merely a tenant in a building.
So-
That's the nature of the relationship.
So the nature of the relationship is, as commissioners, we have approved a payment to a tenant of yours.
Correct.
Mr.
A tenant
Zeno,
of my,
It's appropriate for you to state your comments and
Well,
let the commission
sir,
move on
right.
from there. So-
Right,
Yes, for
I will call for an ethics committee hearing on this.
you do that.
Glad to.
You do that.
Mr. Rozelle, nowhere in your campaign literature did you describe your actual job at the county. Would you please describe it now?
Mr. Zeno, please address all the questions to the chair. And
All
once
right,
again,
Mr. Paul,
once again,
would Mr. Rozelle clarify what his responsibility was in the election and why it was never revealed in his campaign literature?
he will, but not here at the commission table. You can ask for that, and we'll make
Well,
sure
I will file an ethics committee on that also. So he will not respond in public per your order.
Not today.
Why?
Mr. Zeno, this is public comment. It allows you to comment. It's not a question and answer.
Yes, Ms.
session.
Rossetti, I've heard you before saying
Yes.
never on the record, that you would never explain anything. Thank you.
Well, I just explained that. It's public comment.
Any other public comment?
Yes, if you don't mind. Robert Wittenberg, state representative, live in Oak Park, but grew up here in Huntington Woods. But wanted to first congratulate the new commissioners, Commissioner Iverson, Commissioner Rozelle. Very exciting for both of you, and I'm sure it'll be a little overwhelming at first. I know the feeling, having just started in January. But if there's ever anything that I can do, for dealing with state politics or anything around here, please reach out to me. I know I gave you my information and you have my information, so please feel free to reach out to me. And I also came today because I wanted to do something that I meant to do before, and I apologize I wasn't able to make the last meeting, but I do have a tribute here for our current mayor, Mr. Bob Paul, and this was commemorating and paying tribute to the 19 years you served on the commission here. So I wanted to make sure that you know you weren't forgotten, but wanted to thank you for everything you've done over the last 19 years. You're one of the most selfless people I've ever met. You truly care about Huntington Woods and have been so invested in the community here through the Men's Club, through the Tri-Community Coalition where I serve on the board, and we work together closely on a lot of different issues. You have such a love for this community, and so wanted to thank you for the 19 years of service and wish you well as mayor. And so for that reason, I am bringing you this tribute to thank you for everything. So I'm going to present that to you. And if you don't mind, just a brief update. I don't want to take away too much time, but one of the main issues that we were dealing with in Lansing, I'm sure people have been following what's going on with the roads and the proposal to fix the roads. And I want to give you an update as to how I voted on the issue and my thoughts on the issue. So there was a roads proposal. There were a series of bills that were signed into law by the governor to supposedly fix the roads here in Michigan. I did vote against it. It unfortunately went mostly along party lines. The closest vote for one of the bills, and they were all tie-barred together, the closest vote was 54 to 53, and there was one Democrat, who's a Democrat from Detroit, who did vote for the bill. But I had my hesitations with this because, so prior to the bills being signed into law, when the negotiation process was going on, you had the governor and some other organizations like the Detroit Chamber of Commerce, and again, full disclosure, I am a Democrat, and some of the Republicans on this said anything over $400 million coming out of the general fund would be fiscally irresponsible. And the proposal that was put into law ultimately takes out close to $800 million. So in my mind, that is fiscally irresponsible. Roughly 200 million increase based on registration fees for your, when you register, and then 400 million roughly from gas tax or fuel tax increases. So 600 million coming from there. Now, one of the main issues, additionally, is that it doesn't get fully implemented until 2021, when all House members are term limited, and we're all going to be gone. So this is, the epitome of kicking the can down the road. That even if all this money comes, if we're able to do this, that the full investment won't be there until 2021. And most estimates, people say that we need $1.2 billion a year to invest in our infrastructure, our roads and infrastructure. And public transportation is part of the equation as well, in my mind. We need $1.2 billion a year, and we won't, again, have that money until 2021. So between now and then, as this gets phased in, our roads and all of our infrastructure is going to be in disrepair, and it's going to cost even more to fix it. So again, I saw this as a failed plan, and I wish they would have given it more time to actually sit down and come up with a long-term solution. So just wanted to update you on that. I obviously can go on and on. There's a lot that's built into this and a lot I can talk about, but encourage you, if you have any questions, and anyone at home, if anyone has any questions, to reach out to me. I will give you my information, as I always do. To call the office is 517-373-0478. The email is robertwittenberg@house.mi.gov, and encourage any of you, anyone at home, to reach out to me, and not necessarily just on this issue, on any issue. If there's something that's coming before me that you want me to be aware of, please let me know. If you have thoughts, if you have concerns, please let me know. And if there's anything we can do to help, again, don't hesitate to reach out. So just wanted to give you that brief update, and again, I'll check in periodically when the schedule permits. And if there's ever anything you need from me, let me know, and I can come back and speak at any one of the meetings. So with that, I'll see if there are any questions.
Just
Yes,
a
Commissioner
comment.
Jenks. Sure.
Although we generate 600 million, the 400 million, which is now earmarked in the general fund, goes away. So the real net increase is 200 million, and that takes a few years to take effect. We could actually have less road funding next year. I think MML calculated we might have 21 million.
Yeah, and I encourage you to look. The Free Press and the news both wrote about this and how this isn't the solution. So I encourage people to read up on it if they have any interest in doing that. So, and again, I could go into more of the details, but I will spare everyone from doing that. So yes, you're welcome. So if nothing else, I wish you all a wonderful Thanksgiving, and congratulations again to the new group here that we will be working alongside with. So again, if there's ever anything I can do, please don't hesitate. So
Thank you very much for the
Thank
update,
you.
and thank you for the proclamation.
you're welcome. Well deserved.
Any other public participation? Seeing no one else, we'll close public participation and move on to presentations. Our first presentation is a matter of receiving a donation from the Huntington Woods Men's Club.
Very briefly, I am Rob Hurley. I'm the current president of the Huntington Woods Men's Club. She came to us recently and had a request for a funding matter. And I would ask that you explain it and
The funding matter was for a speed trailer. It's a custom electronic speed trailer, and what it does, it's a LED digital display of your speeds for the residential streets. It uses a traffic calming device. It also will not only monitor your speed, alert you to your speed, also tell you to slow down if you exceed the speed limit. The other thing that it does is a database that collects speed data, traffic data for us. So what I've done is I've developed a traffic safety division with one of my lieutenants. We're going to record all this data, all the residential streets, and we're going to move this trailer around along with our traffic cars to monitor and to reduce the speeds. Not only will it reduce speeds throughout the city, but it'll also help us at the intersections for the yield signs, stop signs. This data I'll also use a lot of this, working with TIA, Traffic Improvement Association, to determine anywhere within the city that we may need changes in whether yield signs, stop signs, directional signs, things of that nature. There's been a call for that, and I see that it is an issue here. And I've had this out now a week or so, and I've already seen very positive results from it myself. And I'm very excited that the Men's Club been very gracious to them to donate the money to be able to purchase this, because this would not have been a budgeted item through the city or tax dollars. But yet this is going to be very helpful to our residents, to the motorists, and to the children that walk to and from school too. So I thank the Men's Club very much for this donation.
And we were very, not only receptive, but very excited about the proposal. It was very well presented. And frankly, we're thrilled to get behind this. It is a ongoing issue and an ongoing concern. I think this fits perfectly with not only the Men's Club mission, but the mission of the public safety. So on behalf of the Huntington Woods Men's Club, I'd like to present you with a check for $9,334 to cover the cost of the trailer. And thank you very much for the opportunity to support.
You could give me the smaller one later. I don't think I'll take the large one.
Thank you very much. The Men's Club goes above and beyond in the city, time after time, year after year, and we really do appreciate all you do for the community. Next up is a public hearing regarding the proposed use of the $9,036 allocated to the city of Huntington Woods under the Community Development Block Grant Program for 2016. Amy, would you like to tell us about the plans we have in place?
Yep, this is an annual allocation. This year we are recommending that 30% of the funding go toward helping to fund the senior services that we provide, the bus driver wages, salaries, and other senior programming. That leaves 70% left over. We have an estimate for $2,500 to make our bathrooms in our wonderful 1950s building here barrier-free. And then the balance of the money would be used for minor home repair. If it would be a very minor project, we could administer it here at City Hall. If it's a little bit more technical, involves a little bit more work, then we would encourage people to work through Oakland County on minor home repair programs. So it's a two-part process. You have before you the proposed allocation. Today we're going to have a public hearing, see if there's any comments on the proposal, and then at the next meeting we will actually have the commission vote on approving the proposed allocation.
At this time, I would open it up to the public for any comments about the proposed use of funds or
Mr. Mayor,
comments.
let me make one brief comment right prior to the public speaking, and that is that I want to make it absolutely clear, Amy and I had a discussion this afternoon about the Oakland County piece here, where you see that $3,826. Those dollars would go to the county, be remanded to the county to be used for home improvement projects. Now, we could take those dollars, $3,826, which is a very few dollars, and put them into what is a dyed-in-the-wool, locally done minor home repair program. But there's so few dollars that it's hard to, it costs a lot to administer. We here at City Hall administer the minor home repair program. It's a good program. So it could be used either for the way it shows up here, which is remanding this money to the county. So when we get this money in, that $3,826 goes right back to the county into a home improvement program. The other method we could employ would be to keep the money here, and it would be administered by me. This department here in the city, a senior would call, say, I need a screen door fixed, for example, and then we would use this money to do that. So that category is not shown here. I want to make that clear. This is for remanding that money to the county. And if it's the commissioner's wish, city wish, administration's wish, we certainly could put it into a dyed-in-the-wool minor home repair program here, which is a different category than this 3826 that you see here. But Amy is correct that only 30% can go into the public service category. She's absolutely right. That's $2,710, and the remaining amount has got to go into those categories you see. So the only question here that, with regard to the minor home repair thing, is whether we ought to remand the money to the county and forget about it, or whether we should do the work here. I will tell you, in the last 15 years, we've done a preponderance of minor home repair and administered it here in this building. So last 2 years, we've sent the money to the county. In the last 15 years or so, we have done the work here. It's work. It's a lot more work and administrative work here, but just wanted to make that clear. Before we get into public comment.
Okay.
Ken Zeno, 8634 Huntington. Tony, I guess what it comes down to is, should we send the money up to the county government, or should we control it ourselves? And I think that, in my opinion, the bottom line is it an undue burden on you and the staff to administer it ourselves? And I would defer to your opinion on that. But my inclination is to not trust any government based on experience that we don't control. And we control this government.
And let me make one more comment here, is that we have done enough minor home repair work in the last couple decades that the amount of money we have in the minor home repair program today is zero. So we have done enough work with our senior population here that we have used every penny of the dollars that have been given us over the years for minor home repair. So today, if we pull out the spreadsheets, I can show you there's $0 available for minor home repair. Only question for the commission is, in that 70% category, if we determine that the 20% is used for transportation, or 30%, excuse me, 2007-10, then the only question is, in the 70% category, is whether in fact those dollars should be locally held or moved to the county. On the architectural barrier piece, these bathrooms were done in 1983. There was some work done to make them somewhat pre-ADA compatible. That was pre-ADA. I've had someone come in to take a look at them, and there are numerous things that unfortunately are not ADA compatible as the restrooms sit today. And so it seems to me that since there's a category we can use the money for to repair that, we ought to do so. I don't think in 2015 we should have restrooms that are not ADA compatible, to be honest with you. So I'll answer any questions you have, but there'll be another public hearing, as you know, then coming up next month, just prior to we'll have a hearing and then approve the monies.
Is this a decision that we can make in December? Can you give us some more information about whether we should send it to Oakland County or hold it here,
Yes.
so that we can all review that?
Perhaps what I'll do is give you some statistics about that, so you have a little more
That
feel
would be
for it.
appreciated.
Mr. Mayor, and if we could include in that, when it was administered by the county, how was it utilized versus when it was administered locally, how was it utilized?
I'll see if I don't know if they have that, but I will find out, Commissioner Rozell, whether they have that sort of thing available. I imagine they do, but I've never asked the question, so.
Great.
We'll find out.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Seeing none other, I'll close this public hearing, and we will move on to the regular items of business on the agenda. Our first item of business is a matter of consideration of endorsement of the Woodward Avenue Complete Streets Master Plan. I do believe we have a short PowerPoint presentation.
We do, Mr. Mayor. Let me just do this, if you will. I apologize if I'm gonna have to make you move so that you don't get blinded by this. It's pretty bright. Thank you.
Yes.
Give this just a second to start up here. Basically, while this is warming up here, I'll give you a little bit of preface to this. The Woodward Avenue Action Association has completed the Woodward Complete Streets Master Plan and is currently asking the Woodward corridor communities to endorse and support the visioning plan that they've come up with. Once the plan has been approved, it will be forwarded to MDOT, who will be encouraged to take the plan into consideration for future construction projects along Woodward. The Huntington Woods Planning Commission incorporated a complete streets section in the recent master plan update, and the Woodward Avenue Action Association's Complete Streets Master Plan is referenced in the update. The Planning Commission reviewed the document at their November 16th meeting and endorsed the plan and recommended that the City Commission approve the plan as well. There was a resolution attached that was in your packet for your consideration this evening, and basically what I'll do is I'll go through the Woodward Avenue Action Association's Complete Streets Plan so that you can kind of see where their vision is as we move forward to 2025. Basically, the project timeline commenced in 2012 with an analysis, engagement with people, charrettes, and a full concept summary report. In fall 2013 and 2014, the project was actually on hold until the BRT project was complete. In fall of 2014 to present, they've re-kicked off the project, finalized concepts with the steering group, and are now looking for an adoption of the plan. The vision that they held for this was Woodward Avenue will be a complete street that provides safe and efficient means of travel for all users, creates excellent quality of place that benefits local residents, builds value for property, and inspires visitors to return. Their mission statement, which was important, said all stakeholders shall work together to create a cohesive corridor plan that balances the needs and benefits of all users, neighborhoods, and communities, that is significantly completed by 2025, which is their target date for this. For the project summary, it included the steering group members of MDOT, SEMCOG, M1 Rail, 11 corridor communities, local and regional activist groups. The public was engaged in the following manner. They had meetings and focus groups, charrettes, walking and bike audits. Website, mobile apps, and social media were also used to give public input. The project documents have included master plan displays, summary displays, and segment displays, which you'll see one of tonight. The technical reports, which are available online at the Woodward Avenue Action Association website, showed traffic reports, the results of charrette community meetings reports, and funding strategies report. So what are complete streets? Complete streets are roadways planned, designed, and constructed to provide appropriate access to all legal users, whether by car, truck, transit, assisted device, foot, or bicycle. What they're trying to do is trying to make Woodward a complete corridor that everybody can use. So why Woodward Avenue? When you take a look at Woodward Avenue, what does it really represent? Well, it represents 5% of Michigan's population. 200,000 housing units, 35,000 businesses, 9 national historic landmarks, and 32 local historic districts. The economic performance of walkable districts, which this is encouraging, include a 30% gain in residential rent, 40% in office rent, 47% in retail rent, and 86% in home sales. Now, bear in mind that this is from top to bottom for Woodward. So there's an awful long stretch in here, so a lot of these averages and a lot of those figures take everything from Pontiac on down. So when you're seeing these percentages, they reflect a composite for different areas. So the Complete Streets Master Plan for the 27-mile Woodward corridor it was put out to provide a vision for WA3 and corridor communities to transform Woodward Avenue. They want a unified vision for the corridor and preserve unique characteristics of each community, incorporate future rapid transit and transit-oriented development. Huntington Woods had several years ago zoned 2A for Woodward. And what that was is a transitional zoning that was based on the future concept of then TOD. TOD is now becoming a reality with the bus rapid transit system coming forward, and we look to have this accommodate all users and develop a linear city by 2025. So what is it that Huntington Woods portion of this is looking for? We're looking to get out of this safer and more prominent bike and pedestrian crossings. So these areas here will be set up differently so that you don't have to make the mad dash across Woodward at 11 mile, or worse yet, try to cross at Lincoln, which is very difficult. We're also looking for raised two-story cycle tracks that are separated from the traffic so that bicycling can be encouraged. And you'll see on both sides, they're looking for this. So what they're looking for is they're looking to make this the same thing on both sides where there's a consistent, cohesive plan. A multi-way boulevard with an island separating local lanes and parking, which makes it less stressful and more convenient for people to pull off and utilize the buildings that we hope to develop along Woodward. The center lane is a center running bus rapid transit system, which keeps this area separate from the main traffic areas and the parking areas on the sides. The pedestrian refuge will have islands and medians, so there's less space between here and here and here and here. So as a result, what happens, the pedestrians will feel safer as they cross Woodward and bring our community closer to Royal Oak and Berkeley. We're looking for on-street parking, which will allow parallel parking on both sides of the street over here, which is the concept currently being proposed, with a bypass lane on each side to allow traffic to pass through, and still have enough room left to create the median berm, which is a nice break feature from the traffic. And the curb extensions, which really shorten pedestrian crossings. That was one of the biggest things that they noticed, and was at all the charrettes were being talked about, was the amount of time that it took to get from here to here and here to here on Woodward. So the next step that they're asking for is they're asking for the cities to endorse and adopt the Complete Streets Master Plan. It is consistent with the City of Huntington Woods Master Plan. It's consistent with the bicycle pathways and programs that we've already adopted, and it's consistent with the Complete Streets concept as a whole. So if anybody has any questions, I'm sure myself or the city manager would be happy to answer them. Thank you very much.
There is a suggested resolution on page 2 of the agenda item from the Woodward Avenue Action Association.
That was great.
First, I'm gonna ask if public has any comments. Hearing none, I'd like to bring it back to the city commission then. Any comments, questions?
No, I mean, I've been watching this movie for some time with the Woodward Avenue Action Association, and you have to start somewhere, and somewhere always begins with good planning, and you know, a lot of this is conceptual at this point. It depends on a lot of things, but you know, there was a time a few years ago, if you had said to somebody that they're gonna build light rail on Woodward from the river to Grand Boulevard, people would have hooted and howled at you. If you told somebody 15 years ago that the hottest street in the city would be Cass Avenue. They laughed at you, so I think this is a
No kidding me.
good, obviously a very good beginning, very good step to building a very good regional cooperation, contributing to regional cooperation and significant redevelopment of a very valuable street. So I would move that we adopt the plan, endorse the plan as presented.
Is that a second?
It's a second, and I'd like to amend. If you look near the bottom, it says, "Now therefore be it resolved that the name of community organization endorses," and I would recommend that we place in there that Huntington Woods endorses. I think that's a friendly amendment.
Most friendly, Commissioner Jenks.
Most friendly.
And succinct, I might add.
I have something else to say.
Naturally.
I support this, but I would also like to get a resolution. A lot of complete streets do not occur on a state road. I'll read it. I don't want to amend this, but I want us to deal with it separately. Part of the vision statement that was just presented from the MDOT Complete Streets Advisory Council, which is really the state authorized body that's to deal with the issue, said, "A process that empowers partnerships to plan, fund, design, construct, maintain, and operate complete streets that respect context and community values." There are a number of businesses that front Woodward between Lincoln and 11 Mile Road. Actually, it's a little bit north of Lincoln because the gas station and the first building isn't in it. On the west side of the road, the city of Huntington Woods receives no monies for the maintenance of the roadway or the service drives on that Woodward area. These are not under the control of Huntington Woods. We understand that these are in the right-of-way of the Michigan Department of Transportation. The catch basins, concrete and asphalt curbs, and some of the sidewalks are now well over 40 years old and have not been replaced. There is a need, as the Woodward Complete Streets Plan moves forward, for the Michigan Department of Transportation to define how the design, construction, funding, and maintenance of the right-of-way is done for these parallel on-street proposed parking slots. The business owners are concerned about services and maintenance of the roadway and removal of snow and leaves, and the funding for this must be resolved in the coming year or years. The funding process must respect not only Woodward and the metro region of MDOT, but also must be consistent with practice done across the state in other MDOT regions, so that there is, if there is funding outstate to a third party to maintain, repair, replace, and service city, village, or township state roads, then that same practice must be done along Woodward by MDOT and be practiced and funded in the MDOT metro region. Part of the Complete Streets Plan for Woodward between Lincoln and 11 Mile Road on the west side of Woodward is to convert the frontage road angle parking on MDOT right-of-way to parallel on-street parking as shown in the Woodward Avenue Complete Street Plan, and I cite where. For these, in addition, there will be space for bicycle and pedestrian facilities. For these additional modes of transit, we request that it be determined who pays, who designs, maintains, and constructs these pathways. I'm requesting that this inquiry be sent to the MDOT Complete Streets Advisory Council, SEMCOG, the MDOT Metro Region, the Woodward Avenue Action Association, the Woodward 5, and the Director of MDOT with a request for a resolution of the funding, design, and service issue. Complete Streets looks at sense of place and is very, very exciting. But at the same time, we're sort of in a catch-22 with a number of businesses on Woodward. I did work for MDOT for many years, and I know that outstate, we originally did the plowing ourselves at MDOT, and eventually we were required to subcontract to third parties. There seems to be a practice in southeast Michigan that they do not pay for these types of expenses, although the roadway itself now is something questionable. But once it gets changed, it would be nice if they're paying in other parts of the state that those expenses be picked up. I'm not proposing that we do the service. I'm proposing that the service be provided to these folks. And as they move forward, Woodward is 21 miles long. There are a lot of communities along the way. This is expensive for us. What Robert reported was we'll have road funds in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. It's got to be done somewhere, and we need to represent the businesses along Woodward because they do pay us taxes. So, I mean, that's my concern, that we also communicate forward. I don't know how you feel.
I think this is a long-term plan, and there is a lot to be determined yet as to who's gonna pay for what and who's gonna maintain what. And I don't think any of us at the table here would have an issue with sending a request for all that to be defined, but it may be premature at this time. But
Yeah, the whole idea is getting MDOT to start thinking about it. They're the one that distribute money. We only get, what is it, 21% of the road funds? And then MDOT keeps the majority of the funds. Let them start paying for some of these services. Later on, we're gonna be talking about what do we do. So I would just hope we can communicate that.
any other comments about the motion on the table? Okay, hearing none, let's vote on that to start with. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. As to Commissioner Jenks' other comments, can we ask the city manager to draft?
Of course I have a copy.
And bring that back at a future meeting for us to take a look at?
All I can, if we start the process, we're not gonna get a response necessarily in my lifetime, but all I'm doing is asking, start the process.
Okay. Item number 2. Matter of consideration of an ordinance to amend chapter 40 of the zoning code of ordinances for the city of Huntington Woods to add a new definition to section 40-1 for the zoo animal habitat. Amy, would you like to
Sure.
lead us on that?
This is a proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance. We recently became aware that the Detroit Zoo is not exempt from the site plan review process. And one of the things that administration is concerned about is reviewing animal habitats simply because we don't have the expertise or the knowledge to deal with animal habitats, space, size, sighting, et cetera. So I had asked the planning commission to exempt animal habitats from the planning commission site plan review purview. They were not comfortable with that. They thought that the animal habitat modifications or new animal habitats that were close to Huntington Road should go through some sort of site plan review process. So the planning commission recommended that the site plan review ordinance be amended so that any modification to an existing animal habitat or new animal habitat within 120 feet of the center line of Huntington Road would go before the planning commission. I want to remind you that any non-animal habitat use or change, you know, like the biodigester, or if they put in a new concession stand, would still go through the site plan review process. But the idea was that if there was an animal habitat being built that was not gonna impact the residents, then not to bring it before the planning commission, since we lack the expertise to thoroughly review the matter.
They still would be required to come to the city, file a permit,
Yep,
and get an administrative approval.
they are still required to, follow the zoning ordinance, which basically in this particular zone just deals with, height restriction. I think it's 2.5 stories, so they wouldn't be allowed to build anything within the zoo over 2.5 stories. They also would be required to, pull all the applicable building, electrical, plumbing, et cetera, permits, for whatever it is that is being proposed to be built.
Okay. I'd like to start by opening this up to public comment. If anyone has, please step up to the microphone.
Just a quick question. The 120 feet is to the center line of Huntington Road. I'd like to know what the right-of-way width is. Is it a 60-foot road?
Name and address.
George Erdstein, 8572 Huntington Road. Sorry.
What we found is that Huntington Road does not parallel the property line or the right-of-way. In some places, the right-of-way is more on the zoo property, in other places it's more on the other side of Huntington Road. So with Huntington Road being static, it was determined that that was the easiest way to measure where that buffer would be, because the right-of-way shifts and is not the same as Huntington Road.
Is it a radical shift? Are we talking essentially 90 feet from the fence line toward the area of concern? I mean, basically, is the road a 60-foot road, or is it a wider road? Do we know?
I don't know, but all I can tell you is that the road is not built in the middle of the road right-of-way. So it's not centered in the road right-of-way, and it does vary.
Well, that 120 feet can become quite small for practical purposes at certain points if the shift is in the wrong place. So I'm concerned about the depth of that area.
I guess I'm not following you, because the 120 feet from the center of the road, that line's never gonna change unless we change Huntington Road.
Do you want to?
Want to look at this?
Do you wanna look at the map and see
Somewhere,
what's
yeah, very
included?
This shows it, so.
With the purple line being 120 feet from the center.
Hard to tell. It looks pretty parallel, but where I am, my area of concern is behind the concession stand and what is presently the Rhino House.
Okay.
That area, and everything is is critical there. I know there was talk about a tram, which has kind of been subdued for the moment as far as their site plan, and if that tram goes through between the Rhino House and the fence, that's a major concern for me, because there's not much area there.
The Rhino House almost completely sits within the 120 feet.
Yeah, right.
And I had also
So-
mentioned that any non-animal habitat, like if there was a tram, would go through site plan review process regardless of its placement within the zoo.
And Safari Grill is not an animal habitat, so that's 100%.
Yeah, okay. I thought there'd be a simple answer, but nothing simple. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
We picked the center of Huntington because of it doesn't vary a lot, but we wanted to have an exact measurement that everyone could agree to.
Okay.
So that's why that was selected.
Good evening. Jason Cherkish, 25710 Salem. I would urge the commission to vote no. I think for starters, I think the way it's labeled on the agenda is a little misleading. We're not creating a new category. We're not just creating a name for an animal habitat. We're completely exempting the largest landowner in the city from all site plan review within 100, once they're past 120 feet of the center line of Huntington Road. It's my fear that once we do this, we would have a very difficult time in the future getting this authority back. And we might want it back. We might want it back for some really good reasons. I could understand that if the Planning Commission was bogged down, meeting after meeting, reviewing animal habitats, which, as the city manager puts, maybe we don't have the staff expertise to do, that would create an imposition on that committee. I don't believe that's happened. If it did start to create an imposition, I think there's a far less radical approach here, which is that the Planning Commission could simply adopt guidelines, just as we do for residential properties, that are specific to animal habitats, where we skip talking about should the monkey pen be 5,000 square feet or 8,000, and I'm making these numbers up because I know nothing about animal habitats, to the city manager's point. But we skip those items and simply look at compatibility, visual compatibility, proximity to homes, height, even if it's not at the maximum height, does the overall mass of the structure and its height create a visible change along that border? Light disturbance, does it change the way the sun reflects? I simply don't understand why we would want to write off any authority whatsoever to simply take a cursory look at these plans. Because once that authority's gone, I don't understand how the city's going to show that they have a compelling interest in getting it back in the future. If you want to streamline the site plan review process for animal habitats, great, but I wouldn't eliminate it entirely. I don't think there's a need, and I think there's a substantial risk, especially to those who have completed significant investment along that corridor. Thank you.
Members of the commission, David Sloan, 8050 Lincoln Drive, Huntington Woods. Is anyone here from the zoo today? No. The issue of the City of Detroit Zoo, certain waivers of requirement of obtaining site plan approval for animal habitat buildings located in our city has been advocated and initiated by city staff and not by residents. I've spoken every time at the Planning Commission and this commission against giving up the city's rights and controls. And the zoo has never showed up at any of the Planning Commission meetings when these issues were brought up. This is an unnecessary private bill. It amounts to a gift to the City of Detroit Zoo, for which Huntington Woods receives nothing in return. In fact, we are even paying for the creation of the ordinance through our outside planning company. If you allow this waiver, then you are giving up the rights of the residents of the city. There are numerous zoo issues, from the drapes along the fence, to the artificial noise, to the unsightliness at Ludlow and Huntington. Since the zoo is located in 2/3 of the city of Huntington Woods, our city, in fact, needs to have a seat on the Zoo Society board, which the zoo has repeatedly refused. The city of Huntington Woods should be protecting the interests of the residents first by using the ordinances currently on the books and not writing new ones for the benefit of the City of Detroit Zoo. I urge this commission to turn down the request for this private bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ken Zeno, 8634 Huntington. We've been down this littered road many times before. I don't understand why the commissioners have repeatedly refused to endorse the equal rights protection under the Constitution. You have consistently sided with the zoo. You have created two classes of citizens with the noise ordinance. Mr. Turkish and Mr. Sloan have made eloquent, and I submit valid reasons why we should reject this. Let them come to planning and zoning, and if you want to do an exemption at that time, that's fine. But let's have the due process of the law to protect our citizens under planning and zoning. And then at that time, you want to grant a variance because they want to build something, we'll have hearings and we will go to the proper channels that we already have in place. And Hank Berry is certainly qualified to talk to you about the zoning, even though Planning and Commission regularly overrules him illegally, but that's another issue. Let's have equal protection under the law.
So Aaron Reddish, 25447 Wareham. I'm going to echo in part what Jason said, that I would urge you to either table or just vote no on this ordinance at this point for a couple of reasons. One was, and actually what the first speaker said as well, that the 120 feet barrier was picked rather randomly. This was something that the Planning Commission at its meeting couldn't really decide why 120 feet. Why not 200 feet? Why not 300 feet? And this might actually be best explained by the zoo, and actually have the zoo come and talk about it. So actually a little bit more information from the zoo officials might actually go a long way. Another option to resolve this part is actually getting rid of point C, which actually is the exemption for site review. The next point, which says that modifications and expansions of animal habitats of 500 feet do not need to go through site plan review, makes a lot of sense. If they're just doing modifications, why not just let them do modifications? But if it's going to be a new building or new habitat, even if it's 200, 300 feet away, this might actually have implications on the community of Huntington Woods. Moreover, the biodigester experience actually, I think, was showing that a site plan review actually goes a long way, because a lot of citizens were up in arms about something that they probably actually didn't need to be. So the zoo came out and spoke and kind of talked about it. There were questions that were answered, and I think a lot of the citizens came away at ease. If there's going to be a new building built 200 feet away with big HVAC or whatever, citizens again are going to be very worried about this, and there will be no recourse because there won't be any site plan review. There won't actually be a public site plan review. They'll go through ordinances, but that's it. So there's actually a real reason, not only for the city, but also for the zoo and also for the citizens, to take a closer look at this and modify it. There's no reason to just give away this and kind of create this artificial barrier without more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment and move it back up to the commission table.
Mr. Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem.
A couple of comments. Number one, Mr. Zeno's comment, this is my first meeting, so I'm not sure what he means when he says that the commission has had a history, and those of you on the commission have had a history. This is my first meeting, and I've never taken a position on anything or voted on anything for the zoo before. So I just want to clarify to those of you in the audience and the public, myself and Commissioner Iverson are brand new. And so we have never voted on anything related to this before. Just on Mr. Reddish's comment, things like a HVAC and a biodigester, regardless of location, because they're not animal habitat, would be subject to the site plan review process. Again, we're just specifically looking at animal habitats. But I will raise a question. I'm just curious. We do have a sort of mechanism, I will say, with residential site plan review, and that is if it's under a certain size, if it meets certain criteria, it can just receive administrative approval. They don't have to go before the Planning Commission. And I'm wondering, is there a mechanism to design something here that would sort of mirror that residential process where we say, all right, this is your submittal, we check off the boxes, it's not going to have a light or significant impact on the neighboring community, and then we can administratively approve it. Zoo habitat only. Obviously, every other structure would be subject to, regardless of location, would be subject to the normal process. And so I'm wondering if that's something that sounds reasonable, or if it's still something that perhaps maybe this administration feels is outside of the expertise.
Well, there's, the way the guidelines are set up for what goes through site plan review for residential is, we try to make them as cut and dry as possible, like 500 square feet. There is some subjectivity built into it that we're trying to eliminate at this point as we are rewriting the zoning ordinance. Because every animal habitat is gonna be different. I'm not sure we could do a one-size-fits-all guidelines, you know, in terms of if it's this big, it's okay, if it's this tall, it's okay, if it's, I mean, I don't know how to do a one-size-fits-all with an animal habitat where land mass is gonna vary, buildings are gonna vary, height of fencing is gonna vary, land size is gonna vary. It's a little easier with residential dwellings to do that, which is why we put this ordinance together, because they are all gonna be different.
I tried to look at the pros and cons of having site plan review. I really think having site plan review demonstrates to the residents that we are concerned about their well-being. I think it's always good to err on the side of caution for the residents. I think that we maintain some control while we admit that we don't know a lot about the specific animal habitats. I think that we have some ability to look and just get an idea. It could go a long way to the relationship between the zoo and the residents, to have them come speak before us and say, this is what we're planning for, you know, for the lions. And I mean, of course, we're not gonna be able to say, well, yes, it needs to be, you know, something specific inside it needs to be there for the lions. But we can say, well, how will this impact the residents? I think that it establishes an ongoing relationship with the zoo. I don't think that there is anything wrong with that. I think that as far as the cons are concerned, the only thing I came up with is whether or not it overwhelms our planning commission, having them come frequently. But I don't know how often they have a new habitat that they're creating. So it may just be once every 5 years that they come. But if we give up the ability to look over, just to look over their plans, how do we get it back? That's my concern.
Any other comments?
Anything you wanna purge before I say something?
I would like to see the zoo report annually on what their plans are for the coming year, because there's a lot of anxiety. At the same time, I'm comfortable with this.
Well, I have to say that, you know, I've thought about it both ways. I understand that saying to our planning commission, what do you think about X, Y, or Z as it may pertain to some obscure element, if you will, of animal habitat is, I wouldn't say it's an undue burden, but I would say you're asking people that have no expertise on a highly specialized topic to comment on it. But the zoo has the expertise. So hypothetically, let's say they come in, and I regard the zoo as a very good neighbor and an extremely valuable economic engine for this area, and I think they created a magnificent facility. But having said that, I don't see how it's a big burden, having sat on planning for 6 years and not being an architect, not being a builder, not being an engineer, and not being any of those things, but you rely on the expertise of others, and the people who make the presentation are almost always experts, if it's an architect or a builder, somebody who can explain it. I agree with Ms. Iverson. I don't see how this is some regular activity. I'm a little concerned about the 120 feet as being somewhat arbitrary. So does that mean if it's 125 feet? And I think basically, initially, I will tell you, when I saw this, because I talked to Mr. Berry about this a long time ago, and he said, I don't know nothing about zebra habitats, which was the first time I ever heard Mr. Berry concede he didn't know something about zebra. And I was shocked by that. But, you know, I don't think it's unreasonable that if the zoo is gonna do something that since they're obligated to conform with all of our ordinances and building requirements anyway, what difference does it make? And it's not an unreasonable burden on the zoo to come in, and if they have very knowledgeable people there. They are highly intelligent. The zoo is a very successful zoo. So, like I said, coming in here tonight, I was almost certain in my mind that I would vote for it. I don't see that there's any big burden being placed on them here. I'm a little concerned about that 120-foot rule. Not because it would really matter, because they have to conform. I can just see people say, well, so it's 122 feet, and as Mr. Erdstein commented, there are places, you always have to think what the problems could be coming down the line, where would the issues be, and I prefer to opt on the side of clarity, opt on the side of giving everything a fair hearing. I mean, most things go through the Planning Commission without any difficulty, and I can see that if the zoo was interested in doing something, bring in whoever their animal keeper is or whoever their engineer is. They all work for the zoo anyway, and just say, hey, this is what we're gonna do, we're not changing anything, it's this, it's that, whatever. But at least everybody hears it at the same time and says, fine. I really don't see it as a big burden on the zoo. I really don't. I don't see it as a big burden on the Planning Commission. I think that it's like everything else. You rely on experts for all kinds of assistance. They are loaded to the, no pun intended, loaded to the gills with them over there. So I don't see this as necessary. I really don't. I was, like I said, I mean, having listened, I'm not inclined to go along with it.
What I'm hearing from the table here is that we have a major concern about the impact that anything they do might have on the community, not so much about whether the habitat is 5 feet by 5 feet or 50 feet by 50 feet, because we're not experts on that. No one in planning is an expert on that. Can we somehow change our ordinances or our direction to the Planning Commission so that they understand when the zoo comes with a proposal like this, that their main emphasis is but their main emphasis is to look at how this would have an impact on the community, not so much the details of, is it the right size for the animals?
Well, the threshold would be if it has any impact, and then
Right.
if it does, how? Because, like I said, I don't know anything about zoo, the guidelines that for the operation of zoos. I presume there's a society. I presume there's more than one industry regulatory agency that they may have, not necessarily governmental, but that they may have some sort of, I think Mr. Berry did, there is some zoologic, they make recommendations about this, because it's always in what's in the best interest of the animal. And like I said, I just don't see, I think Allison hit it right on the head. How often is this really gonna happen? And so basically it's like, so what? So come in and just tell the Planning Commission what you have in mind, why you're doing it, And that way, if anybody has a question, they can ask it, and everybody's happy. You know, I don't see a circumstance where they're not gonna get what they want, as long as they come in and say, this is what we're doing, and no, it's not gonna change the light, or no, it's not gonna increase the noise, or no, this, or whatever it is. And, you know, like I said, I think they're a very good neighbor, and I wanna treat them like a very good neighbor. And I think requiring that they do what other good neighbors do is not an unreasonable burden.
Mr. Mayor, what I think I agree with my colleagues here, and I think what we can do is reach out to other cities and towns across the country that have a community zoo, similar to what we have, a zoo that's situated in a residential neighborhood, and see what standards they apply. And we can cherry pick the standards that we think will be most appropriate to our city, and then provide that as guidance to the Planning Commission to review the requests from the zoo going forward. So something I think that to study and acquire some more information on and look at in the future as establishing direction to the Planning Commission on it.
I move that we table this, is what I would do.
I don't even know that we need a table. If we
Yeah.
don't take it up,
You just don't take any action, then nothing will,
Okay.
nothing will be done.
Same as tabling.
except you have to bring it back.
If you don't table it.
So,
So what do we, take
hearing no
action?
motion on this, move on. Item number 3, matter of consideration of adjustment of the millage rate regarding the George W. Kuhn drain debt.
Tony, you wanna explain this?
Well, as you simply said, all of us were taken aback by the bankruptcy in Detroit. And unfortunately, when the George W. Kuhn drain was remanufactured into its current state from a 40 million gallon tank to a 60 million gallon tank back in the year 2000, the Oakland County Drain Commission apportioned that debt. And they apportioned a portion of it to Huntington Woods, logically, right? So took $125 million or something like that, I don't remember what the figure was, to rebuild the weir and the tanks, and big deal. There was a lot of debt. Our portion of it was $3,887,000 and some change, so it's a lot of money. When it was apportioned to us. There was no portion of that apportioned to Detroit. Hindsight's 2020. Looking back at that, you know, we should have had a failing squad going up there and saying, look, stop what you're doing, stop, portion of it to Detroit. What ultimately happened is an agreement was struck with Detroit that would allow for a secondary apportionment through an agreement, not through Oakland County Drain Commission. And that apportionment was a 83 point, there was apportionment of about 87% and 13% or something like that, 13.89%, where 13.89% was the Detroit portion, 87% was ours, of the debt. When the bankruptcy occurred, of course, and for 14, 15 years, I would send out a bill based upon this agreement every February to Detroit, and it was paid, no problem, right? Got the agreement, pay the bill, easy. And then all of a sudden this year, that did not occur. And, you know, it occurred to me, of course, it was because of this Detroit bankruptcy issue, and we were all kind of blindsided by it. And so I contacted the attorney and contacted Alex, who was working a little bit in that area, more with Rackham and more with the American Golf sort of thing. But in the end, it boils down to we have a debt millage we have to pay. And that debt millage is gonna be borne by somebody, and that is going to be either Detroit or us, our resident, or just our residents. The debt's gonna be paid. So unless we can get Detroit to capitulate or somehow determine that that is going to be upheld in that, now the bankruptcy's done, so we may or may not be able to go anywhere with this. The total amount owed in the end today is about $330,000. This year,
Detroit's portion.
yeah, that would be, yes, that's Detroit's portion. This year it's 37,000. I know Joe and I have had some conversation about it, you may have some questions about it. That accrues to about 0.11 mils. We'd have to add to our debt, you understand, to pay it. That's all there is to it. Someone's gonna pay the bill. If it's not gonna be Detroit, our residents have to pay it. That's all there is to it. And it stems back from, so this commission is fully understanding of that, and the public who's watching this broadcast understands, it was the apportionment at the 1997 through 1999, 2000 Drain Commission hearings with regards to the apportionment of debt, which was apportioned to Huntington Woods, not Detroit and Huntington Woods.
So what we're asking for tonight is to adjust the millage rate up by .1158 mils from what was placed in the budget that was adopted July 1st in order to make up for the shortfall that we're not getting from Detroit. And if we do in fact receive payment from Detroit, then what we levy next year will reflect that, will be reduced to reflect the payment that we receive hopefully sometime this year.
And I'm sure, as you folks know, that Oakland County and other counties in this state, the state of Michigan, is very concerned about making sure that what levy you levy is what you need to levy for the reason you need to levy it, and not to be capricious about it and levy money for some extemporaneous purpose or whatever. And so we're very careful about that. That's why there's something called the 4029, which certifies the fact that we are doing what we need to do under the state statutes with regards to millage. And so I cannot just cavalierly determine to levy millage because I want to levy millage. And this certifies to the state that this is done in the right vein for the right reason. But, and the last piece of that is we've paid 48% of the entire gross amount of George W. Kuhn debt. 48%. So the original was $3.887 million. We now owe $2.046 million. So 52% is still due. 48% has been paid of the whole thing, including the whatever Detroit portion that is. So about half, 50% through the millage or debt. Now the attorney and we've been working and getting started ramping this up to see where we can go with this, and it may be nowhere, but I'll answer any questions you have.
Okay. Any public comment?
Jason Cherkish, 25710 Salem. I have a very simple question, which is, was the city of Huntington Woods, as the anticipated future recipient of these prospective payments for about another 10 years, is that it, Tony?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
of what's left.
Well, I'm going to say probably 12, 13 years worth. Yeah.
Okay. Were we named as a creditor in Detroit's municipal bankruptcy? And was that debt discharged? And if not, why aren't we suing the city of Detroit to pay their bill?
I'll let the attorney answer that, but let me just say that we are currently working in that regard. And the original premise was that it was secured debt in the beginning because it was a debt for millage being paid for what is the debt on a public George W. Kuhn bond. So we're working on that right now.
Well, I would think it's a simple question that can be answered. by looking at the final order entered in the Detroit municipal bankruptcy. And I think it's premature, given the safeguards that are in place about raising the millage rate, to raise a millage rate when we don't even know for certain that our rights have been impacted to collect this money owed from the city of Detroit. So I would urge the commission to find out first what their legal posture is relative post-bankruptcy before first authorizing a millage increase when Detroit may very well still owe us this money.
We have a legal, yes, we have a legal obligation under the law based upon timing of the 4029, timing of when all of the information for the winter tax bills are due to the county. And the fact is that unless this is done properly at this point, we would run the risk of not being able to pay the debt with millage because of the timing of the winter tax bill information to the county to allow the tax bill to go out. This doesn't change anything with respect to us going after Detroit in terms of dealing with this debt, which I think we need to do. I've already had the discussion with the county. The county is well aware of this, and there is no doubt that the monies in the George W. Kuhn Fund, Drain Fund, will stay there, and in fact, the millage will be reduced if we need to do that next year. So it doesn't change any facts here. It's just a timing issue with regards to the winter tax billing cycle, and that's the reason it's before you today.
Any other comments?
Ken Zeno, 8634 Huntington. I think the taxpayers, for the record, should understand, Ms. Rossetti, I believe we entered into a 45-year agreement with Detroit on sewage and water. You don't know. It's a 45-year agreement to the best of my knowledge. You are facing, also, as part of the bankruptcy, I think the taxpayers need to know that 2 counties voted for it, Oakland and Wayne, and Macomb voted it down. As part of that agreement, everybody in the Detroit bankruptcy made a sacrifice, except for the bondholders of Detroit Water and Sewage. As a result, 45 cents out of every dollar we send to them is going to debt service, which was not forgiven under the bankruptcy. Now, you're facing a situation here with apparently double-digit increases in our fees as far as the eye can see, because the system is broken, needs more fixing. We're just talking about fixing something one time. And so I think that taxpayers need to know this. Now, you're in a tough spot as commissioners. As Tony, Mr. Lehman says, we're going to have to pay this. You know, we signed up to a bad deal. You know, we let the county do a free ride here, but we need to pay the debt. And Huntington Woods has always paid our debts. So I reluctantly endorse this increase. I'm sorry, Tony, but
Pretty good, I like that.
But I understand. You know, we've got to, you know, pay the debt. But I urge you as commissioners to take a lot closer look at county government, take a lot closer look at the deals we enter into, because this deal is disastrous. And the third thing we can do, we're built on an aquifer. It's illegal to drill a well, which, by the way, probably is Rackham's interest, to get off of the system. Why do we want to support such corruption? I think we shouldn't. I think we should, with all possible respect for our debts, we should figure out how to pull the plug on this corrupt system. Thank you.
All right, seeing no other public comment, I'll bring this back to the city commission table.
I'd like to move that the city L 4029 millage request certification be adjusted to reflect the increase in the GWK millage rate for the fiscal year 2015-2016 by adding an additional 0.1158 mils to the tax roll for the 2015-2016 winter billing cycle, December 1, 2015. The total amount of the GWK levy for fiscal year 2015-2016 is 0.8312 mils.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor? I would just say this is definitely a tough pill to swallow, but I am confident that we will do our best to recover these dollars, and that the residents, I'd like to see incorporated in the motion that there be a statement that the city shall aggressively pursue this, and that the citizens will receive a credit in the subsequent year for any dollars that are received. The clock has run out, essentially. December 1st is the levy, so we've got to do this. If this is a signed agreement, then we march into court and we ask to have it enforced, and we recover these dollars. To Mr. Zeno's point, the DWSD bonds weren't discharged in bankruptcy because they're revenue bonds, and they're subject to rate-paying ability of users of the system. The only bonds that are subject to bankruptcy are general obligation bonds, and so that's why Detroit's general obligation bondholders sacrificed and were treated that way in bankruptcy, and revenue bonds are a whole other animal altogether. So it's a disappointing situation to be in, and we will do whatever we have to do. For those of you watching at home and those of you in the audience tonight, whatever we have to do to recover this money from the city of Detroit. I can assure you of that. Because even if 1 year was discharged in bankruptcy, I've never heard of a bankruptcy being able to prospectively discharge debt that does not exist at the time of bankruptcy. So if we didn't receive any notice and it was not in fact discharged, then we'll pursue it in court. If we do have to eat 1 year's worth of millage, then so be it, but we will pursue future years.
Let me make two brief other comments, is that we have yet to receive a letter from Detroit in any regard with respect to that. That's number one. And the second thing is, of course, when we entered into these agreements in the year 2000, no one ever foresaw that there would be such a historical change in Detroit's wherewithal, this whole situation in bankruptcy. I mean, that's beyond the pale, historic at best. And so it's easy to sit here and look at this now, but thank you for those comments.
So if the motion maker...
Right, we have a friendly amendment on the floor, if you're willing to accept that.
I'm willing to accept the first part, defining whether it will be a credit or a reduction next year. I would rather leave to the finance director, but that the idea of aggressively pursuing the recovery seems to be friendly. The other one seems to be taking the role of...
Essentially, it's the same thing, in my opinion, whether it's a reduction.
If I may speak to that, just brief point, and that is that to some degree it's self-annealing, because the fund can only take what the fund needs to discharge the debt, no more, no less, ever. So, although I understand that, and that's a very logical thing to put in the, both situations work, irrespective.
Well, I like the aggressive pursuit. I just don't want to define how we're gonna handle the revenue when received. Is that acceptable to you?
Well, it's gonna happen, so that's fine. I'm okay with that.
Thank you.
You second that? Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 4. Matter of considering an agreement with the city of Berkeley for the purchase of salt and unleaded fuel.
Yep, we have shared services with the city of Berkeley, utilizing their salt so that we don't have to build our own salt dome. And we also utilize their unleaded fuel so we don't have to maintain a gas tank on our premises. So every 2 years, we enter into an intergovernmental agreement with them to lay out the terms of the purchase. When Joe reviewed it, he did note that there was one term that needed to be tightened up a little bit to be in compliance with the Intergovernmental Contract Act. And so if you, on your desk on page 5, at the top, under term, I'm sorry, 8, yes, under term, we did add some subsequent language about where the intergovernmental agreement needs to be filed. So it's a slight modification to what you received in your packet, but there's no substantive change to the document. So I'd recommend that you approve this intergovernmental agreement with the city of Berkeley for the purchase of salt and unleaded fuel.
So moved. Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5.
This item is a resolution to move the precincts 2 and 4 for the March elections from the Burton School to the Recreation Center. Normally, school districts are closed the day of elections so that people entering the school to vote are segregated from children. In this particular case, after the school's calendar was set, the state of Michigan set the primary for March 8th. So the school district has approached us and asked us to please move our precincts out of the school just for this one particular election into the recreation center so that they can continue to have school for that day and not have to shut it down. There is a process that you go to. This is the first step. This would be a resolution. The school district has agreed to pay for the postage that we will need to use to send out to the voters in precinct 2 and precinct 4, letting them know that the precinct just for this particular election has been moved from the school to the recreation center.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve that resolution as stated.
Support. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I would just point out that Representative Wittenberg is in the audience and has introduced a resolution in the state legislature to hopefully alleviate this problem going forward. And so we certainly appreciate that and hope that the legislature will take that up.
Question, is the legislature going to fund us for an additional election and what the costs are? Or that wasn't part of the plan?
Just want to make sure, how are we going to notify the voters on the election day of the change, where they should be going? Will there be some notice on the doors?
Yeah, the principal said she'd put up the sandwich boards,
Okay.
letting people know that they need to go next door.
And the good news is the parking lot is shared with where they will be going, so fortunately they will not, as I am one of the affected voters, I will not have to go very far. So.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 6.
This has to do with the maintenance of the angled parking spaces along Woodward. It's in the MDOT right-of-way. April of 2014, I took this issue to the City Commission asking that we discontinue services since we do not receive any funding for maintenance on those angled parking spaces. And we did do a significant amount of, provided a significant amount of services at no cost to the business owners, nor were we reimbursed by MDOT. At that time, the City Commission agreed with that policy, and it's back on the table now for reconsideration to take a look at whether or not the city should again provide some sort of maintenance for those angled parking spaces in the Woodward right-of-way.
Do we have a motion on the
Make a
table?
motion that we reconsider. I'm not sure how the wording here is, if I'm saying it correctly, but reconsider our policy that is currently not maintaining.
Can I make a friendly amendment so that the maintenance would apply to snow plowing and salting and not to the other aspects here?
I'll second that with that amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Not only that, Mr. Mayor, I would move that we add to that, that the property owners in this area, because we are, in this instance, plowing what is essentially, not essentially, it is a state of Michigan trunk line space, the area, the right-of-way area between, in front of the building to the cement barrier before you get to Woodward is all part of the state trunk line. And because we're doing that, I would move that the property owners sign a waiver with regard to any liability that the city would have with regard to the plowing operations when they're carried out. That would be subject to drafting of an agreement by Ms. Rosati for the property owners to sign, and I'm convinced, based upon the discussions I had with Mr. Brodsky and Mr. Daly along Woodward, that I don't see that they would have any issue with regard to that. And I also just would say that this was a long-standing policy of the city, the service that was provided. I would also say that the amount of taxes paid by that group of buildings on Woodward is extremely substantial in terms of the city's revenue. And, you know, those are folks that don't get a lot of services necessarily from the city. And so, they're very good residents, albeit commercial, of the city, long-standing ties to the city. Mr. Brodsky grew up in the city. Mr. Daly maintains his business in the city. These are very good residents for our city, and I see this as a very minor effort on our part to accommodate their needs. So, subject to my suggestion amendment with regard to the waiver of liability and Mr. Jenks's point, I think it's a good move.
So we have, let's take care of, we have another friendly amendment on the table. We're being very friendly tonight. But I need you to,
some people.
Direct me, how do I go forward?
Just
Make
need
a
to
motion.
accept
and
that.
we
You
accept that,
accept it.
yes. I make a motion, I accept that.
Good old Mr. Roberts.
No objection, Mr. Mayor.
all right, I do have one question. Do you want to go first?
I just want to make a comment that, these folks, as part of our city tax levy, there's a sanitation levy on their tax bill. They pay significant dollars towards city sanitation, and a lot of them use commercial carriers. So I'm able to sort of justify this snow plowing by the fact that they are paying money toward a service that essentially they aren't all receiving. And so this is sort of a do good by your neighbor. These folks are pretty substantial taxpayers in the city, and so I have no objection, especially with the waiver of liability. So thank you.
My question was to Commissioner Jenks' amendment. Did I hear right that you wanted snow plowing and salting? And that was it?
And that's it. The reason I presented this beforehand was there's a catch-22 operating there. That is a road, it should be maintained by the Michigan Department of Transportation. The statement that's been made to people is they don't maintain these side roads. My feeling is, having worked at MDOT, that in certain parts of the state, they do plowing and they do salting. And that obviously they do the repairs of their own road. That needs, and that's why I produced this. Because long-term, I think, yes, they have the right for everything that was on this list. But I don't think we should be paying for it. It's the thing, for example, I live right near Oak Park. right off of Coolidge. We have no lights, as far as I can tell, street lights, on our side. I can't, but we use the street lights that come from Oak Park. If a light goes out on the Oak Park side, so I have no light on my side, even though it has always been to my benefit at no cost, I can't really tell Oak Park what to do. I think MDOT needs to clarify this. It may be that it takes us a period of time, but those are old roads, they're expensive. That's what their concern is. We can't be doing it unless we're gonna get reimbursed. So, I mean, the small part we can do. I don't think we can do the other part. And I think that we have to fight for that for the entire Woodward. When it comes to Gratiot, it will not be.
She accepted your amendment.
My point in bringing this up was that I don't think it's safe for us not to look at removing the snow because it can be a traffic issue.
It is a
And
traffic.
so not picking up the third item on that list, I think is a mistake.
I think it was included in your motion and my second, if you're in agreement with that.
No, I did.
Oh, his amendment only.
That's why.
Well,
The removal is, from what I saw, at least in this spec, the snow removal from parking areas typically is once yearly.
That's correct.
And if it's once yearly, that's a commercial activity. And I think that should be negotiated between the city and the businesses, but that's my.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Iverson, would you consider amending your motion then to clearly state that the snow removal is included?
Yes.
Okay, and I will support that as the seconder of the motion. Commissioner Jenks, I agree with you 100%. We should not be in the business of maintaining a state trunk line. I think that we can have a dialogue with County Road Commission, who ultimately under contract performs those responsibilities for MDOT, and ultimately have the discussion with them and try to resolve the maintenance issue going forward. Nobody wants to look at a pothole-ridden, concrete busted up parking, angled parking roadway next to Woodward. And so I think that's a separate discussion that going forward we definitely will pursue.
Well, but it also destroys our equipment, so I mean, we have to be thoughtful.
The trucks
on
are
that.
out there anyway.
Okay.
All right. We beat this dog.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7 is a matter of consideration of a wage increase for our public safety director. We have 2 positions in the city that are direct hires of the city commission, and they're under contract with the city through the city commission. That is our public safety director and our city manager. So therefore, it is our responsibility to annually or occasionally or whatever the time period is to look at their employment contract with us. In recent year, we have given all other city employees a 3% wage increase. City manager did that through our budget that we all approved. So what we're looking at here is giving a similar wage increase to our public safety director. As well as the other part of this is an extension or an increase to his severance package that is part of his employment agreement from the current 3 months to a 6-month severance package. The reason why we're looking at this, or the reason why we didn't do that originally, is because we hired Andrew as our new public safety director a little over, that's probably been about 1.5 years now. We hired him based on his resume and on a 1-hour interview, and although we were very confident that we thought he could do the job we wanted him to do, we didn't know for sure. So at this point in time, with 1.5 years of experience under our belts and being able to see the job he's done with our department and the respect that he's gained from all our officers, I think that is something that he is very deserving of, but I'll open that up to discussion or a motion, and
Well, I would move that we approve the increase and the severance, because candidly, I think that the chief has been exemplary since he took over. I mean, let's remember when he started here. He started here right before the Great Flood, and he's been accessible, friendly, effective, knowledgeable, every positive accolade that one can confer he deserves. So I think he's more than deserving of the recommended increase in severance protection.
I have a second.
Second. Mayor Ken Zeno, 8634 Huntington. My hometown, New York City. Fiorello LaGuardia used to say, look at the record. Look at the record. It's been exemplary. I fully endorse.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next agenda item, number 8, was a matter that I asked the city manager to place on the agenda, and that is a matter of consideration of a wage increase for our city manager. I would also argue that our city manager has done an outstanding job in her tenure at the city. We did for those commissioners, and I do believe that they have been, those reviews have been made available to our new commissioners, but we did go through a formal evaluation process with our city manager June or
August.
July, was it August? Okay, where we all filled out forms and sent those into Mayor Gillum, and this is at this point in time, we're taking that and moving forward from there. So I would like, once again, to see a 3% wage increase, as well as a similar increase in her severance package from 3 months to 6 months. I don't know if I stated this the first time around, but that is in the city of Ferndale and Pleasant Ridge. Similar
Pretty
positions
standard.
have the same 6-month. Oak Park actually has a 12-month. So
Yeah.
this is bringing up our city manager to a more comparable contract with our neighboring communities.
So move.
Second. Same accolades. Talk about
Any
battle tested by fire.
Yeah.
No, by
Or
flood.
by
No sense
water.
of repeating them.
And the more Herculean was, people forget, for all the criticism the city received for the flood. We had 3,400 tons of trash moved out of this city in a 10-day period of time, largely due to the efforts of Amy Sullivan in procuring trucks from another jurisdiction and vendor to do that.
You know,
And, you know, talk about addressing the biggest issue first at that time, went a long way to helping heal the residuals of at least not seeing it every second, what had happened. So more than deserving.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, I would just say, this was my first meeting and there were 2 raises on the agenda, so the first thing I did was say, can we see some evaluations? And I used that evaluation review along with my experience dealing with both the chief and Amy since the election, and both have been extremely responsive to any requests that I have. There's been immediate follow-up for information when needed, and so I support the request as
I
well.
thought he was gonna ask for a
I thought he was
3%
gonna ask for a
increase.
3% raise.
So
Yeah.
Tony, throw that 3 cents, throw that 3 cents in here, and
I object.
we'll let Commissioner Iverson know she got, what a great deal she's getting here.
Yeah, right.
First raise in years.
Any
I would like to say, you know, just starting in the last couple of weeks, it's almost become a game for me to call and see if you'll answer, because every time I call, you answer, and I just want to stump you sometime. But yeah, so I appreciate
All your help.
Thank you.
Bob?
All,
Yeah, I just appreciate emergency response is now in place. Communication is proactive rather than reactive. The concerns that citizens have had, you've responded to. There's that lady sitting there with the smile who's been a little bit helpful, and that guy there without too much hair has been helpful.
Thank you.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I imagine you will take care of those
Yes.
last two items. 8B, I'll call it, that we added to the agenda, is regarding special meeting for interviews.
Yes, generally, the city commission interviews interested applicants for boards and commissions. We usually set aside about 15 minutes per applicant, and we have 14 interest forms, which, if you do the math, is 3.5 hours worth of interviewing. And last year, we had done them prior to the regular meeting, but this obviously is, would be a big chunk of time. So I was hoping to set a special meeting just for boards and commission interviews. The first doesn't work for everybody, the 8th doesn't work for everybody. I'm wondering how Monday, the 7th works, and we're looking at 6 o'clock start time for that special meeting.
Okay for me.
Fine with me.
It's good for me.
I'm almost sure it's fine.
Hang on, I gotta look at my brain.
You gotta look at what?
My brain. I carry my brain around in my pocket. It works.
All right, then we will set the special city commission meeting just for interviewing boards and commission volunteers for Monday, December 7th at 6 o'clock, and we'll get that posted and on the website, et cetera.
Here in the commission chambers?
Yes,
Yeah, we said.
I need a motion for that.
sure, wouldn't hurt.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
All right, thank you, that was easy.
Do we need another motion to change the starting time of the December 15th
No,
commission
No.
meeting for
You don't need a
for the
motion.
matter
It's a
of the,
regular meeting.
yeah,
for
we're
the
just
matter
gonna,
of the budget presentation?
we are going to, the next meeting, December 15th, we are gonna start an hour early. There'll be a special meeting from 6:30 to 7:30 for the audit preparation. Again, open to the public, no action will be taken, but informational for the commission and anybody else that wants to join us. So we'll have a 6:30 start time on December 15th.
Okay. Item number 9 is a closed session, matter of consideration of recessing into closed session immediately following the regular city commission to discuss pending litigation. Do we need to reconvene following that
Yes.
with an option to reconvene? This will be
Well, you'll be reconvening to close the meeting in any event, to end the meeting.
okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'll move that we go into closed session pursuant to MCL 15.268C to discuss pending litigation, Sempliner versus City of Huntington Woods.
I'll second.
Need a state. Do we need a
Roll
state?
call.
We'll be reconvening
You just
in the
did.
motion?
No.
Okay.
You're fine.
This requires a roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
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 Aye. Motion carries. So we will reconvene immediately following the conclusion of our normal meeting. Reports and minutes. We have a number of reports and minutes presented to us today. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, I'm going to receive the reports and minutes as filed. Treasurer's report, the warrant number 304. I have a motion to accept, subject to full audit.
So moved.
Support.
Any questions, comments?
Always call me if you see anything, please do.
I do.
Jeff, you do.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion opposed? Motion carries. One final opportunity for public participation.
David Sloan, 8050 Lincoln. I want to thank Amy Sullivan for helping on an issue that I brought up a number of months ago. I've been thinking for the last year, actually more than that, several years, about the light on Lincoln and Coolidge. That light would flash at 10 o'clock at night and not come back on until 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. And that's always been a problem with people coming back and forth through to Oak Park, sometimes late at night, which I do, or we also have people driving up Coolidge and they came to the flashing light. They didn't know what to do. So I talked with our city commissioner, our county commissioner, and then we talked to Amy to determine what could be done, and you talked to the Oak Park people, and they were able to take care of that. And it really was an easy matter to take care of. But we all appreciate that. That was a good thing, but most people don't really know about that, so that's why I wanted to bring that up.
Thanks for bringing that to our attention. City managers report.
Sure, I've got a couple of comments from other departments. The DPW will be doing one last sweep of the city for leaves next week, so if you get anything out over the Thanksgiving weekend, we will be through the city to pick those up. If you're going to put them out during the week, make sure that we haven't already been down your street and picked them up. So if you're gonna be putting them out during the week, then you should call and see whether or not we've been down your street. After the curbside vacuuming is done, you can still put leaves at the curb in yard waste bags through December 15th. So anything that doesn't get picked up by the city can be put into yard waste bags through the 15th. From the recreation department, the skate park is closed and the tennis nets will be coming down shortly. The winter edition of the Hometown Herald is now online and hard copies are gonna be mailed out this week. Registration for the classes is already underway, so if you wanna get a jump on it, you can take a look at the online version rather than wait for your mailed copy. And the recreation center will be open Saturday and Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend. The library will be closed.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions of the city manager? All right. Hearing none, we'll move on to commissioners' comments. Commissioner Olsman?
I just want to wish our residents a happy and healthy Thanksgiving holiday. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I also would wish them a happy and healthy Thanksgiving holiday and thank them once again for the trust that they've placed in me. I am honored and humbled to be serving. And now that the election is finally over, I'm able to roll my sleeves up and get to work. And so really looking forward to the balance of my term here. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Jenks?
Thank you for re-electing me. Happy Thanksgiving. Stay safe.
And thank you very much again for electing me. I'm looking forward to taking part in this. This was actually very exciting. My first meeting, so thank you, and happy Thanksgiving.
The new era has arrived.
I'd also like to send across my wishes for a very happy Thanksgiving for everyone. And as my favorite stadium announcer always said when I was a student at Michigan State, if you're traveling this holiday weekend, please travel and drive as if your family was in the other car. With that, okay, meeting adjourned. We'll reconvene in a couple of minutes.